Ever get caught in that loop? Where worries or negative thoughts just circle around in your head.
Oh, definitely. Like a little voice that just won't quit.
Exactly. We all know that feeling. And today, we're going to dive deep into the work of Ethan Kross. He's written some really influential stuff on this inner voice and how we can, well, maybe get a handle on it.
Right. We'll be digging into his 2021 book, Chatter, The Voice in Our Head, Why It Matters, and How to Harness It. And we also get a bit of a preview of his next one, Shift, Managing Your Emotions So They Don't Manage You, which is out in early 2025.
And we're drawing this from Cross's own interviews and talks, right? To really get his take on this chatter and then move into the practical side, how to actually manage those emotions.
Yeah, the idea is to understand the chatter first
Hmm.
and then look at the evidence-based ways Cross suggests for shifting our emotional state so it doesn't, run the show.
So think of this as maybe a shortcut, a way to grasp how your own mind works and pick up some useful tools without having to read everything yourself.
Like a practical toolkit, hopefully.
Okay, let's jump in. What exactly is this chatter that Cross keeps talking about?
So at its heart, chatter is when we get stuck in those repetitive negative thought loops. Cross has this great metaphor.
Yeah.
He compares it to being a hamster on an exercise wheel. You're spinning, putting in all this mental energy, but you're not actually getting anywhere useful, just stuck in the cycle.
Right, that makes sense. But that inner voice itself, the self-talk, it's not all bad, is it? It must have a purpose.
Oh, absolutely not all bad.
Yeah.
Self-talk is fundamental.
Mm-hmm.
Cross points out that language isn't just for speaking aloud, it's a critical internal tool.
How so?
Well, think about remembering a phone number or someone's name. You probably repeat it silently, right? That's your inner voice. It helps us remember, plan, simulate future events too, like rehearsing a presentation in your head. You anticipate questions, figure out answers. That's all internal self-talk.
Okay, so it's this really essential tool, but then it can go wrong and become chatter. What are the downsides when that happens?
Well, when chatter takes over, it can seriously mess with our thinking, our ability to perform tasks effectively.
Yeah.
Definitely. And it's a big deal. The WHO estimated the global economic hit from things linked to chatter, like anxiety, depression.
Yeah.
It's in the trillions.
Trillions, wow.
Yeah. And it's not just work or performance. It can really strain relationships, too.
How does it affect relationships?
Because when you're stuck in that negative loop, you often feel this really strong urge to talk about it constantly.
Right, you just want to get it out, venting.
Exactly. But Cross makes a key point here. While sharing and connecting is important, just venting doesn't necessarily help you work through the chatter. Sometimes it just keeps those negative feelings swirling around for you and the person listening.
That really resonates. You feel like you're just replaying the bad stuff over and over. So Cross talks about ways to handle this chattering.
Yeah.
I remember reading about something called self-distancing. That sounded interesting.
Yes. This is one of the really powerful tools. Self-distancing is basically about creating a bit of psychological space between you and whatever you're feeling.
How do you do that?
One fascinating way is by changing how you talk to yourself internally, using your own name or you instead of I.
Like talking to yourself in the third person.
Kind of, yeah. Cross mentioned an interview with LeBron James, who apparently often refers to himself as LeBron James when he's thinking through big decisions.
Huh. That seems a bit unusual.
It sounds it, but the idea is that shifting away from I can help you regulate your emotions, create a bit of distance, like you're advising a friend.
Okay.
And it's not just for celebrities.
Yeah.
There was this study with a little 3-year-old, Jane, doing the marshmallow test, trying so hard not to eat it.
Yeah. What happened?
She spontaneously started talking to herself using her name, like, Jane, you can wait. It suggests this ability to get distance might develop really early. It's like looking at your situation a bit more objectively.
Wow, from a 3-year-old, that's amazing. And wasn't there a really powerful example with Malala Yousafzai too?
Yes, that's an incredible story. She talked about how during that terrifying attack, she consciously used this technique. She literally asked herself, what would you do, Malala? And then answered herself, guiding her actions.
In that moment of extreme stress.
Exactly. Which shows how powerful this can be for managing intense fear and pressure. Creating that tiny bit of distance allows for a more reasoned, less purely emotional response.
So instead of I'm panicking, it's more like, okay, you need to do this now. That's a subtle but huge shift.
It really is.
Okay, so we've talked about how just venting isn't always the answer.
Right.
What does Cross suggest for actually working through the chatter? This leads into his new book, Shift, right?
Exactly. This is where we get into the toolbox approach from Shift. The core idea is There's no magic bullet. No single fix for managing tough emotions.
Right, because we're all different. Situations are different.
Precisely. We've evolved this whole range of emotional regulation tools. Kross says the key is to become aware of them. He mentioned something like 26 different evidence-based practices just in chatter, and then figure out which ones or which combinations work for you in different situations.
A personalized toolbox. I like that. Makes sense. So what are some of the key tools in this shift toolbox?
Well, one category he talks about is sensory shifters. These tap into the direct lines between our senses, sight, sound, touch, smell, and our emotional brain centers.
Okay, like how?
Music is a huge one. We all kind of instinctively use music, but maybe not always strategically. Kross tells this story about his daughter.
Oh, yeah.
She was really upset on the way to a soccer game, and Journey's Don't Stop Believin' came on the radio, and apparently it just completely flipped her mood.
Ah, I can picture that.
It made him realize just how powerfully music can hijack our emotional state through those sensory pathways. It can actively redirect things.
That is so relatable. A song comes on and boom, different feeling. But he does warn about using it the wrong way, doesn't he? Like listening to sad songs when you're already sad.
Exactly. If you're feeling low and put on melancholic music, it might feel validating for a second. But if the goal is to shift out of the sadness, it can actually keep you stuck there. You need to be intentional. Choose music that pulls you towards the feeling you want.
All right. Makes sense. And it's not just music. Other senses, too.
Yeah, things like physical touch, a hug, a hand squeeze, even the comfort of a heavy blanket. Our senses are wired directly to our emotions. We just need to learn to use them more deliberately.
Okay, interesting. Sensory shifters. What else is in the toolbox? What about, like, our surroundings?
Ah, yes, environmental shifters.
Yeah.
Our physical environment has a massive impact on how we feel, much more than we probably realize.
Okay.
Kross talks about something called compensatory control. The idea is when you feel out of control inside because of chatter, imposing order on your outside world can help.
Like cleaning, organizing.
Exactly. Tidying up, organizing your desk. It provides this sense of control that can kind of counteract the internal chaos. He even admits he does this himself when stressed.
Huh. I think I do that too, actually. Never thought of it that way.
And then there's nature, getting outside, especially in green spaces. Research shows it helps restore our attention, which gets totally drained by chatter.
Yeah, a walk in the park can make a difference.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And also our connection to certain places, you know, that favorite coffee shop, maybe your childhood room. These places can feel safe, secure, like emotional anchors.
That feeling of just walking into a space and instantly feeling calmer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. And didn't he also talk about actively changing our environment, like removing bad stuff and adding good stuff?
Yes, that's key. Part of it is removing triggers, things that reliably set off negative thoughts. He uses pizza as an example, kind of jokingly. If he doesn't want to eat too much, he just doesn't keep it around. Simple avoidance.
Makes sense. Out of sight, out of mind.
And the flip side is bringing in positive cues, like pictures of people you love. Studies apparently show that even just glancing at a photo of someone you feel close to can help you recover faster from stress.
Really? Just a glance.
Seems so. It triggers those feelings of connection and security.
These are really practical things. Okay, what about mental time travel? That sounds a bit sci-fi.
It's not quite like that. It's more about shifting your perspective in time, thinking about the future or looking back at the past.
How does that help with emotions right now?
Well, zooming out temporally can change how you feel about the present moment. For instance, remembering past hardships you got through can make current struggles feel a bit less overwhelming. It gives perspective.
Right, like I've handled tough stuff before, I can handle this.
Exactly. Or even just imagining positive future outcomes. Engaging with stories, like movies or books, can also be a form of this, exploring different emotional possibilities. It reminds you that your current feeling isn't the whole story. It's temporary.
It's like reminding yourself this feeling won't last forever. You mentioned perspective. Kross also talked about reframing, didn't he? That seems related.
Very related. Reframing is consciously changing your interpretation of a situation. Finding a different angle, a more constructive story to tell yourself about what's happening, which then changes the emotion attached to it.
Okay. Now, what about dealing with difficult situations or people? Is it always best to tackle things head-on immediately? Kross suggested maybe not. Something about strategic avoidance.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes taking a step back before you engage is the smarter move. It goes against that impulse to react instantly, especially when you're upset.
Yeah, that impulse is strong.
Cross mentions learning this in arguments with his wife. Taking a break can be better. Or delaying your response to that really annoying email. Giving yourself time for the initial emotional heat to die down usually leads to a much better outcome.
Oh, I've definitely sent emails I regretted later. That makes total sense. Give it some space. What about other people? How do they fit into managing emotions? Social connection feels like a double-edged sword sometimes.
It really can be. Other people definitely influence us through emotional contagion. We pick up on others' feelings, especially when things are uncertain.
Yeah, you look around to see how you're supposed to feel.
Right. And social comparison is unavoidable too. We compare ourselves to others. Cross says we need tools to handle the negative side of that, like maybe curating your social media so you're not constantly seeing things that make you feel bad.
Good point. Less comparison fuel.
And back to the venting point, while sharing is vital, just dumping negativity isn't always the fix for chatter. But having what Cross calls chatter advisors.
Chatter advisors.
Yeah, like trusted friends or mentors who don't just sympathize, but actually help you gain perspective, offer support, and help you think things through. He talks about having his own kind of informal board of advisors.
So finding people who offer real support and insight, not just an echo chamber for the negativity.
Precisely. People who help you broaden your perspective.
Got it. And one last tool that seemed a bit surprising. Rituals. How do they help with chatter?
Rituals, those structured, often repetitive sequences of actions, provide a sense of order and control. And that feeling of order can be really grounding when your internal world feels chaotic because of chatter.
Ah, okay. Like athletes with their pregame routines.
Exactly. Those routines create predictability and a feeling of control in a high-stress situation. Even a simple, consistent morning routine can act as a small anchor when things feel turbulent inside.
Creating little pockets of predictability. I see. Wow, that's a lot of different strategies. It really sounds like the main message is that it's super personal, finding what works.
That's absolutely the core takeaway. The best tools depend entirely on the person and the situation. He uses a fitness analogy. Different workouts suit different people. The key is to experiment. Try out some of these different shifters. See what actually resonates with you, what gives you relief. It's about consciously building your own personal emotional regulation toolkit.
This has been incredibly insightful, really digging into Ethan Kross's work. It feels empowering, actually, knowing there are these different ways to understand and manage what's going on inside our heads.
Yeah, it gives you a sense of agency.
So here's something for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. Now that we've explored these ideas for understanding chatter and shifting emotions, what's maybe one small, deliberate change you could try this week? Just one technique from this toolbox to experiment with to see if it helps you get a little more control over that inner dialogue.
Yeah, maybe take a moment to think about your own toolbox. Is there something new you could add?
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Ethan Kross's really valuable work.
We covered ideas from chatter, the voice in our head, why it matters, and how to harness it, and got a glimpse into the strategies from his upcoming book, Shift, Managing Your Emotions So They Don't Manage You.
And if you want to explore further, definitely check out Ethan Kross's website. Lots more resources there. We hope you'll join us again for future deep dives into other fascinating topics.